Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Secord from the Canadian Celiac Association National Office. And today, in a first of several interviews that I hope to have over the coming months with our local chapter leaders and influencers, and just learning a bit more about their journeys, the great work that our local chapters are doing in the community, and to highlight the amazing work of the dedicated, whether they're volunteers or staff across the country. So today, for my very first installment, I'm joined by Lisa Rigney with the Edmonton chapter. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me from Edmonton. So I just want to first of all have folks just understand a little bit about your role at the Edmonton chapter.
Sure. So I'm the program coordinator with the Edmonton chapter, and I started my role back in January 2021. So I've been with the chapter for about 18 months, and I've loved every second of it. So it's a very varied role. It covers a multitude of things. So we do a newsletter. We do a quarterly newsletter. So 4 issues a year. We take phone calls, emails from our membership or from anybody who has a query with regards to the gluten-free diet or celiac disease. We run events. We have, last year was quiet, obviously with COVID, but we did our best to make it as creative a year as possible. May obviously is a really, really busy month, but last year we did our ride, walk, run for celiac disease. And that was in a place called Rundle Park in Edmonton, and we had over 100 people participate.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. Yeah, it was really, really fantastic. We have gluten-free living 101 meetings, and we try and hold those monthly or bi-monthly. And those meetings are gold dust to somebody who's newly diagnosed, or if they're a parent or caregiver. We also established a kids group last May as part of May Awareness, actually. So it was launched last year. I mean, I think we've had 5 meetings to date, and it has been online, but I'm really excited that we have our first in-person meeting next month.
Great.
So
and where is that going to be held?
A group of kids getting together. It's actually in our offices. We are part of a facility called the Jerry Forbes Centre for Community Spirit. It's actually a really interesting building that has a number of charities and organizations within it. So we're part of that, we're in that building, and we have, that's where we're hosting it. And it's actually part of a bigger event that day. The actual Jerry Forbes Centre has organized an outdoor market for 4 hours. And we're going to have an information table on the outside and some gluten-free treats for whoever wants to come down and meet us. And then on the inside, myself and Deanna, who's a board member and somebody who's been very involved with the chapter at the same time frame as me. She started in January of 2021. We're going to be running the kids group. And we have some very fun, exciting activities for the kids. And so we're really, really, really excited to finally meet these little people in person.
Oh, that's amazing. It's important for young children to know that they are not the only ones going through this, and then they can connect with other children and other families. And, it's that strength in numbers. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the Canadian Celiac Association and our local chapters. And the local chapters really are all about boots on the ground, that personal connection, because the disease, there's one thing for national to, as the advocates, talking to Health Canada, food safety, those big overarching issues, the products that end up in your grocery stores. But when you're first newly diagnosed, it's the supports of going into your local, what are your local finds? What are your local bakeries? What are your local restaurants? What is it locally like, needed for someone to be successful in managing their disease in Edmonton? But just knowing that there's people around you that you can connect with, and it forms that bit of a community that makes you, even from a mental health perspective, just stronger, knowing that you've got local supports, that can help give you those nuances. And it's amazing to hear that kids group helping and support families. I know we've got the Growing Up Celiac resource, and hopefully we're getting that out, through your group. So how often does that meet again?
It's kind of been, we haven't had, like last year we met 3 times. This year so far we've met 2. So I'm trying to make it more consistent. So bi-monthly. We've also, in the pipeline, we're going to establish a celiac youth club. So it'll be for kids from age, say 12 to 18. I don't know if we'll get as far as the 18-year-olds wanting to partake, but we certainly, they're on our radar. And I think you hit a lot of key points. Community is paramount, and I think that's one thing I learned very early on in our journey with celiac disease. It started off with me as a parent of a child with celiac disease feeling very alone for a very short period of time. And then I connected with the celiac community, and it feels like you're enveloped with these two giant hands, and you're looked after, and I genuinely mean that. And you mentioned connectivity about the kids, and that was one of the big, behind the scenes, I suppose, reason for the group as well was to connect these kids. They have this really common bond or common diet, but they've a lot more. We can show them that they've a lot more in common. But this is and that they're not alone, and that their diet is limited, but they'll never be limited. We will make sure that they are not.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, their potential is limitless. So just dial back a little bit about, you mentioned just before we started that, you started off as a volunteer and then it became a part-time sort of formal role with the Edmonton chapter. So just your family's journey with celiac disease, do you want to just describe it for our audience a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I have 3 kids. I have a daughter and 2 sons, and Lorelei is my oldest child. She's 12 now. So back in 2017, she was experiencing really, really, really bad gastrointestinal pain. So much so that she'd be lying across the couch and she would be crying, and she'd have her arms around her stomach. And it came to a point where, there was probably points in the previous to that I can't remember now, where she might have started to complain, which is normal kind of complaining. But this went to a point where my radar went off, and I went, this is not right. And the same with my Ryan he would have been 4 at the time, and he was also complaining of tummy pain. So I took all 3 kids to my pediatrician at the time and explained what was going on. And she was a phenomenal pediatrician, and I fully believe that my journey would have been very different had I not had her. I believe, I was really, really lucky. So I don't know if it was the first meeting or the second meeting, but certainly, first of all, we were pursuing reflux. And Lorelei, it wasn't going away. So at the appointment, she asked the question about celiac disease. She said, is there celiac disease in your family? And I had heard of celiac disease, but a faint knowledge, as in I knew gluten was associated, and to be honest with you, very little after that. So I just said to her, no. So she ticked off the box on the requisition, and then literally the next day I got the phone call to say that Lorelei's numbers were sky high. So they suspected it was celiac disease. Ryan had low IgA levels. So what they did was she put them both on the referral to go to see the pediatric gastroenterologist. When you become a parent of a person with celiac disease, you get to say very big words that are very difficult to say.
Yes.
So I went, and again, for us, the pain continued with Lorelei, and then I looked at her, and I was like, she looks very pale. She looks very worn out. And after the diagnosis, I looked back and I thought, actually, she was always eating but never full. She was always looking for something to eat. So sometimes after the event, you see things. So we were, again, very lucky. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. So 2 months later, we get our appointment at the Stollery. Lorelei, the specialist did gene testing on both Lorelei and Ryan. Both came back as gene carriers. Based on Lorelei's blood work and the fact that she's a gene carrier and all the symptoms that she'd been exhibiting, etc., and her story, the decision was not to biopsy her because they do that now with kids. So she was given the celiac disease diagnosis that day, and she went on a gluten-free diet for life, which was exceptionally overwhelming. And at the same token, I was told to keep Ryan on a gluten-containing a regular diet for the next 6 months, and he would go back and he would get the biopsy done. So I went home with, I think I used the word overwhelmed, like every 60 seconds, because that's how I felt.
Well, it's this new disease, and it's what we eat, and then you go home and you open up all your pantry and you've got flour and bread, and
yes.
then you realize there's gluten in more than just pasta, flour, and bread and cereals. It's okay, the spices, and oh my gosh, like I have to read every label. And
Yes.
so I can only imagine, and we've had some of those calls to the office with parents in overwhelm, and it's at least it's a relief that you know what she has, and that there is something you can do, but it's like, where do you start, and how do you manage this as a family?
It's a journey, and that's it. And it's the most natural thing in the world to feel overwhelmed. I'd be surprised if you didn't feel overwhelmed, because it is. It's a diagnosis that impacts the whole family as well, because it's a learning journey. And as you say, because it's food, it impacts so many things. But you get there. It takes time, and everybody has a different kind of time frame to follow. And one of the first things I did join the Canadian Celiac Association. Laurie was diagnosed at early December 2017. So it's probably 2018 when I joined. And then I had all these wonderful resources, and I got my pocket dictionary, and I was going around this, and now that's an app, so people can download this app. And if you're unsure about an ingredient, you can check. And one of the things that I found fantastic, and I always recommend as anybody when I'm speaking to people who are newly diagnosed or caregivers, is the gluten-free living 101. And I know that we do them locally and we do them nationally. Even this month, the webinars on the CCA National have been phenomenal. They've just been super. And we share that information with our membership on our social media platforms and in our newsletter, because they are, again, nuggets of gold. And we've done, so that's the one thing about celiac disease, is that it has, even though it's very hard at the beginning, it opens your mind and it makes you look at things differently. I am a different person. My daughter's we're a different family now, and we look like. I often say to people, yeah, absolutely, you have to become an amazing label reader, and that goes without saying. But also, then you look at the flip side of the label, and you're looking at the nutrition fact table, and you're going, okay, well, what's in the product, and what am I getting from this, and what do I need, etc., etc. So it kind of makes you more aware of your whole body and what your body needs, especially as a celiac, because you're because of the diet, etc.
And how is your daughter doing? Like, how is she doing with parties and school and just some of those? I don't know if she's maybe old enough to kind of go out for lunch with her friends. But how is she doing there?
She's doing great. I mean, we did, when she was diagnosed, she was a new 8-year-old. She was in grade 3 at the time. So we had to navigate all, I had to go in and speak with her teacher, and I would, like most parents, at that point before the pandemic, there was always treats, etc., etc. And oftentimes she couldn't partake in treats, and any parent of a child with celiac disease does not want their child to feel different at all. So it was a case, and she's, so I would send in a box of treats so that she would always have something to select. Had she been in kindergarten when that occurred, I would have made gluten-free Play-Doh, because I know Play-Doh is impacted as well because of the flour, etc. Parties at the beginning, we had an event actually last night called A Candid Conversation about celiac disease, and we were talking basically, it was just a conversation about all things celiac. And one of the things we were saying was that if you are a quiet person or an introvert before you once you're diagnosed with celiac disease, you have to actually come out of your shell. You have to speak up, because if you don't, it's not going to
find your voice. You
have to find your voice. So I had to have those. Of course, funnily enough, when Laurie was diagnosed, it was December 2017. She was invited to 3 birthday parties that month, just newly diagnosed, and I was like, so I had to have all these conversations with people, and I was being newly educated. I was learning. So, and I was, whatever I knew, I was imparting. But certainly at the very beginning, I sent Laurie with her own food at the beginning. But as the years have progressed, she's had some marvelous friends who really make sure that she's looked after. So they, if they're like, she'll be served first, and nobody has, like, say for example, there's a fruit tray, or I have had friends who will make gluten-free, who will bring gluten-free desserts. I often make them, and to show people that gluten-free can taste really, really good. We did, on that note, we made cupcakes there recently at our kids group, and my gluten eating boys had them, and they were like, they are the best cupcakes I've ever had. So there's all that navigation. It's when you go to a restaurant, we're now trying to teach Lorelei how to, because she's 12, she'll be 13 this year. We've done a lot of the talking for her. So we'll let her speak. And then if we need to kind of come in and kind of give her a little bit of backup, we will. But it's, it's for her to find her voice.
You know, and that's amazing. We celebrate moms and dads because, the more empowerment that you give your child, the more success that they're going to have. So you want to protect them, but it's important to empower them. And that's what we want to do through CCA. We want to find everybody who's celiac, but we also want to empower them. And because that empowerment makes you feel more confident and you can have just a more successful journey. And so when she goes off to high school and university, she'll be that much stronger. And we know the outcomes for children who just have that. They've been taught to self-advocate. They're just more confident. They're just in a better place, and they're just able to pick those coping skills a bit. Especially if they get gluten. I mean, that's. Do you find that she's more sensitive if she gets gluten now, like now that she's been off?
Yeah, so we had she actually, unfortunately, we had an experience there last month where she did get gluten. It was outside the house. I said to you at the beginning that, like, originally her symptoms were gastrointestinal. It was cramping, etc. This time around, unfortunately, like within a few minutes, she certainly was kind of sitting forward and holding her tummy, but it was nausea and it was dizziness. So she had kind of lightheadedness for a good day. She didn't feel right. So we have these, again, we had conversations afterwards. We have to be like, in that scenario, we had done all the things right. We had we'd done our research as to where to eat. We had made the phone calls. We had spoken to the staff when we arrived, when we sat down. And I'm now adding on an extra layer of protection that when the plate actually is put in front of her, that we say, she is celiac. Can you confirm that meal is gluten-free? Because if there's anything on that plate has touched off a gluten-containing item or is not gluten-free, she's going to feel the consequences for the next couple of days. So you kind of really have to educate and speak up.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And, as they say, next to end-stage renal failure, kidney failure, celiac disease is like the second most burdensome disease because every meal has to be gluten-free, every food celebration. And it's really important that we want, like, everybody needs to be welcomed at the table. Everybody should be able to eat safely, to enjoy their food. And I think it was nice when you said that, you're demonstrating to some friends, even, your family, that gluten-free can taste really good, and that, you can actually serve like a whole meal of gluten-free. It tastes great. It's not, from 40 years ago where it wasn't very good. There's some really amazing products. So thankfully that has changed, and there's been some great product innovations, and we're really, thrilled to have those, companies, can continue to innovate those recipes and make them feel good, so that really you could serve it and not everyone may go, oh, this is a great cake, and well, guess what, it's gluten-free. But it just shows that, it's just, you have to be so vigilant, because it sounds like your daughter is even more sensitive as she gets gluten. The suffering, that the symptoms she had is a bit more acute and severe, and it's you just don't really want to feel that way, and you've tried to do every protection, and you say, okay, now we've got an extra layer when we go out to give that precaution. It's, the advocacy will never stop. And I know hopefully there'll be some treatments and maybe a cure. That will be probably less likely, but I think treatments that, knowing that, support from the Edmonton chapter, along with support at Celiac, the national office, that we can together try and continue to advocate at those kind of different levels, the local, the national level, on behalf of the community. Because I guess as an individual, you can advocate, there's only so much you can do as one individual. So I guess that brings us back to that, working at the Edmonton chapter, is you get to see that next level of support and care and community that you can give those individuals who are having those daily battles, And as you say, when you had that kind of open conversation, let's just talk about your struggles. Let's talk about, maybe some supports or here's some suggestions. So I think that's a wonderful service that you give in Edmonton, to the community and which is great.
Thank you. It's like, for the most part, we've had great experiences eating out. And I think I mentioned to you in an email that a number of months ago we were away, and Lordy attended we went to a restaurant that was fully gluten-free. We'd never been to one before. And her words to me, where she turned around to me and she said, "This is the first time I've been able to eat off someone else, like my family member's plate, in 4.5 years or whatever, 4 years."
Oh,
and it was just one of those moments that it made me feel exceptionally happy and exceptionally sad. It was like one of those kind of double-edged, but it was fabulous. It was just really great. It's great to, for her to feel that way.
Yeah, and it makes you, as you said, your mixed blessings going, this is amazing, but too bad it couldn't be every day, and a challenge for us for sure, and in keeping our families safe. So in terms of Edmonton, I mean, the chapter is doing some great work with the programming. So during Celiac Awareness Month, I know that you had the High Tower high level, is it high level or high level bridge?
High level bridge, yeah. Actually, so Marina from Kinnickinnick did a super job. She went into the city and took some photographs and made it into a video, and did video footage as well. So this year we had a repetition of last year, which was the High Level Bridge and Epcot Tower. But we had an addition in the Hotel McDonald, the Fairmont, and that looks stunning. It was gorgeous. So that was and we have our Green Ribbon campaign running all month, and so we've had a really great month. Myself and my office volunteer Paul, who's absolutely amazing, we went into Kinnickinnick actually and had an information table at the beginning of the month. What else have we done? We had a gluten-free food bank drive-by, and I'm actually dropping off the proceeds early next week to the Edmonton Food Bank. We had we had a candid conversation about celiac disease last night, which was a lovely event. We're running a colouring competition for the kids group, and actually on Monday, which is May 30th, we have a lady called Michelle from Michelle's Gluten Free Kitchen, and she's doing a live cooking demo for us. So that's really exciting.
That's
a couple
great.
of spots now. Yeah, so it's really exciting. So, and it kind of attests to the fact that, I remember the early days thinking, I looked at the kitchen differently. I was almost fearful in the kitchen, and that changes. That's momentary. You move on, and there's so many resources. There's so many resources now that you can, cooking can become great fun again. You can embrace the kitchen.
As a mom of I guess one child with celiac disease, and I guess you're waiting to see about your other son. Have you been sort of advocating among your other family members just to have them screen for celiac disease because it is genetic, or do you look back and say, yeah, I wonder if my grandmother, I guess, what side of the family has it come on?
Yeah, we absolutely, and right from the get-go, right from when Lorelei was diagnosed, it was a case of, okay, the word is out now, communication, let people know. But there's only so much, anytime, I will always say to my family, it's something that can trigger at any time in life as well. So the fact now that we have Lorelei, if you have these symptoms, etc., mention it to your doctor, because it is a blood test. And I know in Edmonton, it's been free for, I don't know how long, but it's certainly been free since Lorelei was diagnosed, and I was delighted to hear that in Ontario that they have extended it to March of next year.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So we have nobody has come to light yet, but there is a few individuals who have not got tested, and they would be the older generation who I have had conversations with, and I have my suspicions about. So, but you can only go so far, I think. But the fascinating thing is the multitude of symptoms with regards to celiac disease. So it's not always just the classical symptoms that people associate with celiac disease, like gastrointestinal. It can be so many different things. It's neurological, or bone issue, teeth. The teeth one blew my mind as well. But sometimes poor enamel could be that the teeth weren't being developed properly because of celiac disease. So, you know, again, it's just continuing to advocate, continuing to let people know that, you know, ask the questions, ask your doctor to run a blood test.
Yeah, you become an advocate, and you sort of, as people ask, you can share those symptoms. And as you say, there's only so much you can do. But I think, you know, who knows, your daughter may become an advocate for your family as, you know, they see that she's thriving on the gluten-free diet and she's handling herself. They may go, gee, you know, if she can do it, maybe I should get checked and I can do it. So sometimes it's a bit fearful of the unknown. And, you know, if they see her thriving as a young person and doing well. So, but, you know, we do so much on that front.
I think so. I think for us, because it's a kind of, maybe every situation is different. I think it's because we live here and the rest of our family live in Ireland. So we've had that distance. I think that if they were seeing her and all the story and the journey, some people would maybe pursue it, should I say. I think so. Everybody has a different story to tell and a different journey. But, you know, 100% like we've all been tested. So myself, my husband, and my 2 boys, we're all negative. The only 2 people in the family tested genetically are Lauralee and Ryan, and they both are gene carriers. So yeah, we're always monitoring, just to be sure.
And the diagnosis is important because as they grow up and they have their families, you know, then they'll be aware to be careful for their own children. And and so it's a family affair, celiac disease. It goes beyond just that diagnosis, and it's so important to get that. So as a parent, what would be, you know, a message you'd want to share for other parents if you had a piece of advice, you know, when you know, a child's first diagnosed? Is there anything that you'd want to share with them?
Yeah, I'd say just reach out to your local chapter, follow, you know, the CCA National on Facebook, check out the website, contact us, wherever you are, contact us, and we will get the ball rolling. We are here to support you. And 100%, the first thing I would say is, do not feel alone. There's a huge community. We couldn't be part of a better community than the celiac community. Phenomenal work has been done across the board, both on a local level and a national level. It's very inspiring and it's fantastic. And definitely, first thing, go to a GF 101, learn the basics, and realize you're not alone. There's lots and lots of support out there.
Definitely. And just to recap on Edmonton, can you share some of the upcoming events or work? I know you talked about the kids camp and the kids club sort of expanding. Anything else happening just the remainder of the year?
Yeah, we're really excited because 2022 there's a lot more going on in 2022 than there was in 2021. So we actually have the gluten-free pancake breakfast outside Kinnickinnick store on Saturday, July 16th from 9 to 11 a.m. Really excited about that. That's a really big event and it hasn't occurred since 2019. So we're back with a bang. Myself and Marina are in the background and lots of other people and trying to get that organized.
I have to get out to that one day.
Then the ride walk. It's funnily enough, Melissa, I've never been I didn't make it. I think we were camping all the time previous to this. So I'm now a part of organizing it. So this is kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. Then the ride walk run is taking place in September, and that's the same area as last year's in Rundle Park. It's Saturday, September 17th. That event runs from 11 to 1 p.m.
So how can people sign up for that actually? So in case we get some interested people who said, I'm in Edmonton, I'd love to participate.
I'm working in the background and I'm going to get a race registration page set up, and then I will be sharing it on, say, social media, newsletter, our website as well.
And we'll be happy to share that through National as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. And that's a really great event. Again, it's twofold. It's getting the community together. We're going to be exercising. You can choose to ride, walk, or run. 3 different options. Beautiful park. But at the very end, we treat you to gluten-free samples. And we had a great lineup We had to kind of alter the event last year because of COVID. So we kind of had takeaway bags. But there's a wonderful selection of local gluten-free businesses in Edmonton and surrounds. So they have been phenomenal over the last number of years in partaking with.
What a great opportunity to get. So if you're newly diagnosed, what a great way to get learning about the local brands that may not be available nationally. Some of those boutique family-run businesses.
And we give coupons as well. We give so there's loads of good reasons, and then you get to come to meet us, and it's going to be a whole heap of fun. It was great fun last year, but make it better.
Support a great cause, which is great. So
thank you.
Excellent. Well, that sounds amazing. The Edmonton chapter is just, I remember when I first started, I went to the Edmonton chapter, had hosted the national conference, and just a wonderful group of individuals, very passionate about supporting the community, and been a great supporter of the national activities as well. So, and thanks, Lisa, for sharing your personal story, and how your family has navigated celiac disease. I don't know if there's any parting comments that you want to make before we sign off, or.
I just want to say thank you for all that you do. It's phenomenal work from the CCA National. Just we are not forgotten. You're touching on so many things behind the scenes, things that mean a lot to celiac people with celiac disease. So there's a lot, I just want to say thank you. We really greatly appreciate it.
Well, that's sweet. Well, thank you for being that local voice and being that local connection for people. It's amazing. So thanks for joining me, and keep up all the amazing work that you're doing in Edmonton.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me again. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot.